today I am going to talk to you about our programmable voice API, which is one of our more popular APIs, and I think probably one of our more powerful APIs as well. So programmable voice allows you to do quite a bit to interact with your customer across a variety of different use cases. So obviously one of the most common ways is if you need to be able to make an outbound call from your API or from your application. We have ways which we'll show today on actually how easy it is to make an outbound call. So you can make those calls from a Vonage number out to any number of customers. In most of the world, we have worldwide connectivity and reach on our number pool. We do have a lot of people that use us for cloaking, which is basically where you can provide a customer with a telephone number to call, and we will cloak that number to call back to another person. So for example, if you've got a rental situation where someone needs to contact the actual owner, we won't give them the owner's telephone number. You can buy a number and have that kind of route through. You can do interactive phone trees, so IVR systems. If you ever want to build this yourself, we have the ability to do that. Pass audio to third parties. This is a really big one. So we make it really easy for you to take that audio stream that's coming from your call and pipe that off to third parties. A lot of times this is used for automatic transcription, sentiment analysis, all that stuff. It takes a little bit more setup, so we're not going to show that today. But we do have a lot of code examples on our blog, as well as example repos for getting that set up. But we can take any audio that's streamed into us, pass that off to any other third party, fairly easy. If you ever want to build a conference call real quick, we can make it super easy to take any number of people, bridge them into the same call with full moderation capabilities, do all of that. And a lot of times, most importantly, the ability to record those calls and easily retrieve that. And then of course, once you have those calls, you can pass those off to anything that understands a basic MP3. So passing it off to Azure, to Google, to any of those other things. So our basic voice API allows you to do a lot of different things and fills in a lot of different use cases. So getting set up is fairly easy. If you were here for our video API yesterday, it's many of the same things. So hopefully, now today I can actually show this interactively. If you want to go through, you can do this completely through our dashboard. So you would log in, you would go under your applications. Vonage application is basically a feature-rich set of settings for various things like our voice, our messages API, our eventually video will be there later this year. You can give it a name, and we do use public-private key authentication. We generate that key for you unless you already have an existing one you want to use, but we take care of generating that so you can make our authentication tokens. And like I said, an individual application actually has a lot of different capabilities, and you can turn these things on and off. So you can go to voice, turn it on, set up some information, and then link a telephone number. We also offer an API, or a command line interface, especially if you're doing a lot of this programmatically. Let me bring that back up to the top. So we can actually make an application here on the fly if everything works properly. Let's see. So we'll make a Dreamforce. Whoops, think of that a little bit. There we go. We'll make a Dreamforce application here. And then, so this will generate the public and private key for us. We can also set up all those callback URLs as well. And if I go into, pop over to here, log me out. There we go. We can come over here to applications, and we can see down here, we've got our Dreamforce 2022 app we just made. We can go in and configure this. I've already got one pre-configured for voice, but if we go under here, we can edit this, turn on voice, and we can set up some information. I've already got some of this pre-set up, but creating the application and getting it set up is really quick. So now for the purposes of the demonstration, we're going to use our SDK. So if you were with us yesterday for video, we installed a video package into Laravel. It's a popular PHP framework. We do also have a lot of setups for other languages. We've got Node, we've got Ruby, we've got .NET, we've got Java, we've got Python, and one more I don't remember off the top of my head. But we're gonna go ahead and install our SDK. This gives us a nice user interface for interacting directly with our APIs. All of our APIs are just standard HTTP calls, but these help wrap that and make it a lot easier for the developer to understand. So I've already got this pre-downloaded on my application, but that'll go through, pull down all the dependencies, and then allow us to actually start using the Vonage APIs directly in our application. And then for Laravel itself, we have some extra helpers, so we can take some of that preset configuration and set that all up. So if you're looking at these slides afterwards, implementing it, you can publish our vendor information, and we just have a couple things for you to fill in for authentication. And those two things are your private key and your application ID. Yesterday for the video, we had a key and secret, and some of our Vonage APIs also use a key and secret, like our legacy SMS applications. You can technically use it with the Messages API as well. Number Insights, which I'll be talking about tomorrow, uses a key and secret. But for today, for voice and anything that's Vonage application related, we'll need a private key and a Vonage application ID, which conveniently, when you make an application, we will create that key for you, and we will let you know the application ID. Or you can grab this from the dashboard by cancel this. On the dashboard, your application IDs under the settings, you can grab that. We do not have access to the private key, so once you make that, you will want to store that off. We have no way of regenerating that, but we do make it easy to create a new one if you do lose it, or you're just playing around in development and want to set one up. We can make new ones for you, but we can never retrieve the existing one. So in Laravel, we would set those up. I've already got those pre-set up for me, but you would just go into generally what's called the .env file, or in your web server, set up some environment variables. You can give it either the path to the key or the actual string of the key, and then the application ID is just a string, so you can plug that in. But you put those two things in, and that will set up all the authentication. The SDK handles actually creating the tokens and doing all the heavy lifting, all the cryptographic work. So we just need to know where those two things are, or what they are, and we go from there. So code-wise, what we'll want to be able to do is, first off, I'm going to show making an outbound call. So we need a place on our web page where we can actually hit that and make the outbound call. So in Laravel, we can make a new controller called Voice Controller, and this is where all of our business logic will actually live. So let's actually make an outbound call. And so to make an outbound call, this is all you really need. There's a couple different sections here which we'll go over. Basically, we're going to make a new outbound call request. We're going to give it a talk action that just says hello from Vonage, and then tell it to actually make that outbound call. So we're going to set up a route here called make outbound call, and we're going to create the setup for the new outbound call. So we need, the first option is the 2. This is the number you're going to call, so you can pull this from a customer record, somewhere in your database, wherever. And then the second option is the number you're going to call from. So this will be a number that you can get through Vonage. Normally you'd have this pre-set up, but you can also purchase numbers programmatically through the command line. You can purchase these all across the world. So if you want to be able to match something that looks local to a customer, you can purchase a number based on their area code and country code so that it looks like it's coming from the proper place. At the very least, you probably want to get a phone number for that person's country to make sure routing and everything works properly. But we allow you to programmatically buy those numbers, release those numbers, do all that stuff. So we're basically going to say, call this number from this other number. And I'll go over this in a little bit here soon, but we have these things called NCCOs, which are call control objects. And they are just actions for your call to make. So in this case, we're just going to do a talk action, and it's going to say hello from Vonage. We'll assign that series of NCCOs, in this case it's just one, but we'll assign whatever we have for that to our call, and then we will actually make that call. So much like yesterday where we need to be able to make it routable, we're gonna say anytime someone goes to our website that goes to voice/outbound, we're gonna go to that controller class we made, and we're gonna call make outbound call. So, if everything works properly, there we go, escape. We should be able to go to, I'm gonna start that go down, that other one did go down. Let's actually make sure we can actually get to the application. So we'll go to localhost voice outbound. So this should be pre-set up to call my phone. There we go. I think I was too quick. So you heard my phone ring. So going to that, made the outbound call. I didn't hit speakerphone quick enough, but it will actually say, welcome to Vonage. Let's give that one more shot and see if we can be quick enough for it. Oh, I clicked refresh too many times. So hopefully that came through. But so that's all it takes to make an outbound call. So adding the SDK and wiring up that outbound call is actually really simple. Doesn't take very many lines of code at all. Now, probably the more interesting piece, because outbound calls are nice, but like you don't really get a lot of interactivity with them. With the NCCOs, we can actually take that and expand from just that general talk action. So for NCCOs, like I said, those are just called call control objects. And what we allow you to do is stitch together these individual actions for whatever you want to be able to do for your application. So think kind of like a little bit like an IVR tree. You can have people input choices. That choice will be returned to you, and then you can go from there. But we offer a bunch of pre-canned things you can do. So simplest thing we like to do is just say, record this conversation. So if you do a record action, it'll record the entire conversation. You can record this as individual streams. So if you're doing a conference call or two people, you can have those split or as a combined single audio file. You can add them to what's called a conversation, which is basically a meeting. So you can bridge together multiple people into a single conversation. You can actually connect multiple endpoints. So one of the most common use cases is telephone call comes in. I'm going to connect to a WebSocket to be able to capture that audio in real time because I want to send that off to Google or Azure for like sentiment analysis for a customer agent. And then also connect another person. So you get the bridged phone call, but also be able to like shove the data off somewhere else and actually connect multiple people as well. So we support WebSockets, other telephone numbers. We also support mobile devices. So if a user is logged into your mobile application, as a user, we can actually tell the voice API, contact that mobile app. Even if you're making a telephone call in, you can bridge together a mobile application. The simplest is the talk, which we just showed. We can stream audio back up into the call. So if you want to have your own custom on hold music, or you want to have an interactive like voice chat with it, you can take an audio stream, push it back up. We can take user input either via voice or phone pad input. We can do automatic speech recognition on it as well as notify, which allows you to say, like, send notifications out to your application in case there are things that actually care about what's going on in the middle of a call. You can send pings out to like different things. So you can say like, notify this other system that like a phone call has been initiated, stuff like that. But you can string these together in any way you want to kind of control what that actual outbound call or response to an inbound call is. And one thing I think it's important to realize with like making incoming and outbound calls are actually how it works. So if you're making an outbound call, it's pretty easy. You're going to send a request to our API. We handle that. Generally, you send the NCCO set as a list of things you want to do, and then kind of go from there. What will actually also happen is, depending on things like if you asked for user input, we will make a request back to your system as well. So you can set up your application to be able to say like, okay, well, we ask them for like your name or whatever, and they mention that, we will send that back to a specific URL on your website. You can handle that, do whatever you want, and then send that request back to us, and then you can keep that flow going back and forth. But it's important to remember that not only will you talk to the Vonage API, the Vonage API will be talking back to your application. So in this case, this is an example of like something coming back in. So we make it really easy to grab that input in most of the SDKs. So I can say, create all this information from our global information. Then we'll get that input. We're gonna make a new NCCO that just says talk. And then from that input, we can say get DTMF, which is just pushing numbers on the phone pad. And we can say, it looks like you pressed whatever, and have that talk back to the user. So we can say, hey, please press a button, which will show up here in a minute. Get that, send it back. But then in this case, we're just returning that NCCO. So it's really easy to get started with being able to manipulate phone calls because it's all done just through these NCCOs. There's not really a whole lot of complicated programming languages that go along with it. So this is an example of a raw NCCO. So in this case, we're gonna wanna record a phone call. So there's two actions here that we'll take. The first off is the record action. And for record, we just say, hey, where do you want us to send this MP3 when you're done? Or notify that the MP3 is done. So we can just say event URL, pass it a URL. When the audio is done being recorded and ready to be pulled down, we'll send you a URL off of our media API and say, hey, here's the MP3, go grab it, and then you can do with it what you want. And then once we've turned on recording, here's an example of us connecting to another telephone number. So we just say connect to this endpoint with, in this case, it's a phone endpoint. Like I said, you can swap that out with like a WebSocket, a mobile app user if you're using like our Conversations API as well. But you can go through, and this is a real quick way of saying, I'm gonna make a call and I wanna record that call. So NCCOs are just regular JSON objects, really simple to install, no weird syntax that you have to learn. And most of our SDKs help you actually build those NCCOs themselves. So the other side of making calls is incoming. So if someone calls you, you want to be able to interact with that person. We do have things like chatbots and things like that, but if you are in a situation where you want to have a lot of control over that and be able to interface with a lot of different things, you can handle that with the incoming call side of this. So the idea this works is the user calls a Vonage telephone number. Our servers actually take that and then make a request back to your application. And then the application is going to return an NCCO. And that's going to happen back and forth as the user continues to do more things with input, or you decide to end the call or whatever. But the idea is we'll contact your application, and then you'll return an NCCO and we'll start that transaction. So in this case, what we're going to do is I'm going to call a telephone number. The API will make a request to our app. We'll return a small little NCCO asking the user to press a button. The user is going to press a button. The Vonage API is going to send it back to our application, and then we'll get that talk action. And like I said, this will just happen over and over and over until you've ended whatever logic you're doing. So again, it's not really a whole lot of code, and we'll kind of walk through it here. So when you call in, we're just going to make an NCCO that says, thank you for calling Vonage. Please press a number. And in this case, because we want to actually take input, we're going to create a new input action. We're going to turn on DTMF, which, like I said, DTMF is just pushing numbers on the pad. You could enable speech at the same time, so you can take either of those options. The speech also allows you to preset some things if you're doing like the automatic speech recognition and you want to pre-fill some words that you think the user is going to say to help with that. But in this case, we're just going to say, turn that on. And then we're going to say, when we're done, reroute to this voice.input, which we'll set up in a minute. But basically, take whatever the user pressed, send this off back to our application, and we'll handle it from there. And like the original talk action, we'll add that to our NCCO overall, and we'll send that back. And then we've seen this before when the user actually presses a button and it sends it back to us. We're going to get that information and we'll just say, it looks like you pressed whatever number it was. And then the NCCO will say that since we don't have any other actions other than talk, we'll stop right there and the call will end. And much like making the outbound call, we're going to set up a route for making the incoming call. So that'll return the NCCO for having the person actually ask for the digit. And then we'll have a second one for actually processing that input. So if you're using the dashboard, you can go and set these answer URLs up. Answer URL, which will be the default URL that we route all call actions to. So we're gonna have one already pre-set up. So we're gonna say voice incoming. You can also do this through the command line. So if you're changing all this stuff on the fly or whatever, you can do that. And what we should be able to do is hit escape. We're gonna go to voice incoming, or we're gonna call our telephone number. Should be this one right here.
Thank you for calling Vonage. Please press a number. You pressed 2.
I did press 2, so that's not pre-canned. So with that, that's actually how easy it is to handle that. And like if you're doing like an IVR tree, you can get that digit that they pressed, route that off to a different set of logic. You can tell it, you know, when they press a 3, do this instead, press a 4, do this instead. And just continue to bounce those NCCOs back and forth until you've reached whatever conclusion it is. Like I said, a lot of people also use this just for general doing the, in the voice API, they're called conversations, but they're basically multi-participant calls, which I think we can handle like 300 so people on an individual call. So there's a lot of use cases for the voice API, and getting it set up is really, really easy. Like I said, we support things in about 6 different languages. If you've got any more questions, one of us will be around here. I'll be in here for probably most of the rest of the day. Also check us out at the Trailblazer booth if you've got more questions. But you can head over to developer.vonage.com and get some information there, or our blog at developer.vonage.com/blog. And we've got a lot of learning material for that you can check out and go from there. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the conference.